This is Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app. Now, live from the Matt Black Kia Studios.
Oh, what an attack! What a move!
Here's Josh Hennig.
Philadelphia Eagles tied. Yes, they tied yesterday. A wonderful day to talk about NFL football because thanks to the Philadelphia Eagles, you now have in Philadelphia the biggest basket case in the NFL. I thought it was going to be the Jets, right? I thought the Broncos might edge into the conversation today because they had Jeff Driscoll playing yesterday. And late in the game, Brett Rippon, the nephew of Mark Rippon, the guy who won a Super Bowl with that Washington football team, he got into the game. You thought that maybe some other teams like the Lions finding ways to barely win that game over the Cardinals, or Kyler Murray throwing 3 interceptions yesterday. You thought all those things could put those teams in the conversation for horrible, poor, bad. Instead, it's the Philadelphia Eagles. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. As Mike Gill mentioned, we'll have your final sports bash cash keyword coming up at 6:55 tonight. So that means you guys stay tuned. We will have the final word today for you at 6:55. And again, we'll restart it all over again tomorrow at 9:55 in the morning. So 9:55, 10:55, 11, 12, 1, 2. We got it all day long. All these chances for you to win $10,000. Big time cash. By the way, 609-403-0973 is PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board 609-403-0973. Emory Hunt from The Athletics, because he joined me coming up at 6:20. We'll talk about the Eagles and some college football over the weekend. I had Emory on a couple of months ago when we were having the conversation about who's the better quarterback, Wentz or Prescott. Well, at the time, Emory said it was Prescott. Follow up with him about that because he said it at a time when that opinion wasn't popular, right? He said he would take Prescott over Wentz when it wasn't popular to say that. And now, looking back on, he looks pretty smart. By the way, we got into some of the college football from the weekend because some of those games were absolutely nuts. I told you to take Mississippi State in the points. I didn't expect them to win the game outright. That was insane. I mean, Mike Leach turned KJ Costello into a legit NFL prospect. Who would have thought that? By the way, some NBA news dropped today. Doc Rivers out as the Clippers head coach. I'm sure there's a contingent of Sixers Twitter that are rubbing their hands right now, hoping the Sixers go get him. But back to the Eagles. The Philadelphia Eagles are a team right now that has no identity. They have no idea what they're doing. And they're a complete and absolute mess. And when you think about what we thought of this team coming in, they have been the complete opposite of what we thought they would be, right? Mike Gill mentioned it earlier on the Sports Bash. He said, never in my wildest dreams I ever think that the reason why this team would be 0-2-1 is because of Carson Wentz. And that point needs to be amplified. Amplified. Never did you think the quarterback would lose you games. Because 2 of the previous 4 years, the receivers were some of the worst in the NFL. Every one of the last 4 years, half the team has gotten injured. We've had coaching turnover. Right? We've had coordinators leave, the offensive coordinator, the quarterback coach, the receiver coach. We've had turnover, right? There have been other reasons why this team has crashed and burned. But yet Philadelphia finds a way to surprise us again. And it's incredibly frustrating. And what makes it more frustrating is that Carson Wentz put you back into a position to win the game. He put you in a position to lose the game. Then he brought you back to tie the game. And then he tried to get you back in position to win the game, all to just have Matt Pryor have a false start and Doug Peterson to punt the ball away. I mean, it's incredible. It's incredible. And when I look at this team, I'm telling you, I don't know what the future holds for them at all. I have no idea. Because when the team's attitude after the game is lost, and then Doug Peterson says this today, this doesn't give you much hope.
You know, right now we're not a very good football team. We're, as I said after the game, we're not very smart. You know, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We're losing or we're leaving touchdowns on the field offensively, and we're just not executing. And those are things that we're going to really look hard at this week. And if we got to simplify, we'll simplify. If we've got to go up tempo, we'll go up tempo. You know, things that have been successful in the past.
But they're not a good football team right now. Just because you're not a good football team right now doesn't mean you can't turn it around. But when he talks like that, it doesn't give you a lot of confidence. When he goes for the punt, it doesn't give you a lot of confidence. And I'm watching that Saints-Packers game last night. And I'm going back and forth between, I'm flipping my eyes back and forth between the Sunday Night Football and the Celtics Heat game. But I'm watching Aaron Rodgers throw to Allen Lazard. And he's having success. And a bunch of other no-name players. And I keep thinking, Carson Wentz still had Zach Ertz out there. He still had some okay players out there to work with. It's not like he was throwing to the worst players in the league, but yet there were times he wouldn't even throw them the ball. There were times that Carson Wentz got so focused, like that interception to Ertz. He never looked off the receiver. And the quarterback just all he had to do was read his eyes and go get the interception. And Doug Peterson says, we're shooting ourselves in the foot. We got to change things up. Doug, you needed to change things up a game or two ago. Why does he take you to 0-2-1 to have a hard evaluation? People forget that's kind of how avalanches happen, right? Small snowball becomes big snowball, plows down the hill. All those fires out there in California and Oregon, it's because somebody started a small fire because they were an idiot doing a birth reveal. But all these people and their homes and their lives in jeopardy because some idiot is throwing off fires in the woods. That's who Doug is. Doug's the meme of the dog sitting at the table in the middle of a fire saying everything's fine. And now all of a sudden he realizes that it's really hot in the room. I've been a defender of Doug. I've been a defender of Carson. I've been a defender of Schwartz. I've been a defender of different entities on this team for a long time. Can't do it today. Carson Wentz needs to be more accountable than just, I have to do a better job. Doug Peterson needs to be more accountable than just say, we got to change some things up. Coach speak all you want. Say everything all you want all week. But at some point, these guys got to step up. Because when I look around the NFL, I see Dak Prescott and Russell Wilson going mano-a-mano in that incredible Cowboys-Seahawks game, right? When I'm watching Rodgers versus Breeze. Heck, I even saw Cam Newton and Derek Carr kind of duke it out. I think right now I would at least rather have what I saw from Derek Carr. Jared Goff. Mr. Jared Goff, who couldn't score almost any points in the Super Bowl, right? He led the Rams back to almost beat the Bills in Buffalo. I can keep going down the list. There's all these. Teddy Bridgewater looked really good yesterday. How about them apples? Carson Wentz hasn't just regressed. I don't know if Carson knows what he's doing. And I can't believe I'm saying that. Because if you would have asked me the same question a month ago and told me the team was 0-2-1 because of the quarterback, I would have looked at you like you were nuts. But guess what? Here we are right now with a defunct offense that can't figure itself out, that's predictable at times, the quarterback staring down receivers, the head coach would rather punt than go for it. And guess what? The defense showed up yesterday. They got pressure. They got sacks. They didn't get any turnovers, but they got pressure on Burrow. And that should have been enough. This is a league where playoff teams average over 23 points a game. The Philadelphia Eagles are averaging around 19.7 points per game right now. They can't even score 20 points a game. And you have an offensive-minded head coach, a number 2 pick overall in the NFL draft. You have a talented running back. You have a Pro Bowl level tight end. And you can't score more than 23 points in a game that your defense, even with all the injuries it incurred, and Fletcher Cox wasn't even 100%, but even he was getting pressure after Joe Burrow. For a guy who had an oblique/abdominal injury, who came to play yesterday? Fletcher Cox. Brandon Graham said that Jim Schwartz fired him up. Well, guess who came to play yesterday? Brandon Graham. Malik Jackson was a little too aggressive. He went and blasted Joe Burrow and got a flag. Okay, Nate Gary stinks to high heaven, but the majority of the defense did their job. It is absolutely, utterly exasperating. Exasperating to watch this offense attempt to function. PlaySugarHouse.com text board is open 609-403-0973. And yet somehow Daniel Jones still looks worse than Carson Wentz, what we saw yesterday. And Dwayne Haskins looked completely like a deer in the headlights. But yet the Philadelphia Eagles found ways to lose the game yesterday. And that's the worst kind of loss. Oh, by the way, they didn't lose the game. They tied it. I'm sorry. It feels like a loss. It feels like this team didn't come to play. And when I look around the NFL and when I see quarterbacks with just as bad or worse situations and they're still functional, they're still getting the job done. Deshaun Watson's got a garbage of an offensive line. I would argue the Eagles' offensive line is better than Deshaun Watson's. He was competitive yesterday. He was fighting against the Steelers. Speaking of the offensive line, can we have a minute to talk about the turnstile that is Jason Peters and the poor day at the office that Lane Johnson had? These are supposed to be your cornerstones of your offensive line. And both of them looked bad yesterday. There were multiple times that Jason Peters got completely manhandled. There were multiple times that Lane Johnson got shoved backwards. Isn't that incredible? It's absolutely incredible to watch how bad they played. You know who actually had a good game yesterday? Nate Herbert until that penalty. You know what, a solid game until he had that false start that ruined the field goal? Matt Pryor. Oh, and by the way, Jason Peters had to leave the game early because he's again injured. But Doug Peterson said he'll be okay because that's what happens with Jason Peters. He leaves the game early, but he'll be okay. Yeah, he was the only guy we called to play right guard, moving the left tackle. Yeah, that's great. Just great. Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. PlaySugarHouse.com text board is open, 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. Again, coming up, Emory Hunt from The Athletic will join me on the other side of the break. We'll get more into the NFL, Carson Wentz, and a little college football as well. Don't forget Sports Bash Cash coming up at 6:55. Your final word today for you have a chance to win $10,000. Only here on 97.3 ESPN. You have a chance every day, 10 times a day, to win $10,000. But you got to listen for those Sports Bash keywords. Final one today is at 6:55, right at the end of the show. Speaking of the show, Game Night being brought to you by GMS Law. Make the right call with 4 convenient locations to serve you. Visit them online at gmslaw.com. You know who's a good quarterback? Patrick Mahomes and Lamar Jackson. That's tonight on 97.3 ESPN, Monday Night Football. This might be the biggest game of the year, and we're getting it in week 3. Man, how nuts is that? There's nothing else on tonight, by the way. The Phillies season's done. Baseball playoffs start tomorrow. NBA finals start Wednesday. You hear the finals of the NBA right here on 97.3 ESPN on Wednesday, by the way. Nothing else is on tonight. You can just get to watch 2 of the best quarterbacks in the NFL go mano a mano. How awesome is that? You hear all the action right here on 97.3 ESPN coverage begins at 7:30 tonight. But coming up next year on Game Night, we will talk more NFL and college football, Carson Wentz and more with Emory Hunt of The Athletic here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN FM and the 97.3 ESPN mobile app powered by First Bank of Sea Isle City.
You're listening to Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig, Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. PlaySugarHouse.com text board is open, 609-403-0973. As promised, joining me now on the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. You can follow him on Twitter at FBallGamePlan for all of your college football, NFL, fantasy football analysis. He is the one and only Emory Hunt from The Athletic. Emory, how you doing today?
I'm doing fine, Josh. I appreciate you having me on.
I appreciate you jumping on, and you're one of the most perfect people to talk to today because you and I had a conversation on the air a few months ago when all the debate was going on about Wentz and Prescott and who's the better quarterback. And you were one of the few people who said, look, if I had to pick between the two, I would pick Prescott. And you, my friend, are looking like a prophet because right now Carson Wentz looks like a regressing quarterback and Dak Prescott looks like a step right below Russell Wilson after yesterday's game.
Yeah, man. Sometimes a lot of people get so emotionally involved, wrapped up into what you say and miss the message. But the reason why I thought Dak Prescott was better than Carson Wentz was due to the fact that Prescott has proven to be consistent. And what we've seen so far with Carson Wentz, that he has proven to not be consistent. So you saw, like, during the game yesterday, toward the end, when they needed to go down and drive to get points to put them in position to go into overtime, Wentz was playing outstanding. Even finished it off by scrambling out and showing some grit and toughness and diving in for that touchdown to tie the game. Where was that Wentz all throughout the game? You go back to the Washington game. Started out on fire, even connecting on deep balls with accuracy and placement. The receiver didn't have to break stride. That was perfect. Then later on in that game, that went away. So you just want to see Wentz be consistent. The one thing that he has been consistent in is his inconsistency. But he also has been consistent in his touchdown to interception ratio, which I think is a good number. He doesn't turn the ball over at a high clip. Although he may take some sacks, he may do some 3-and-outs, but that's quarterback play regardless. But at least he's not a turnover machine. I don't believe he's a turnover machine. I know right now it looks like that, based on 3 games into the season, but he just has to find the consistency. So for me, Dak Prescott has been as consistent since his rookie season.
Sticking with Wentz for just a minute, one of the things that stood out to me yesterday also was on that second interception, he was trying to hit Zach Ertz. He stared him down. And that's like fundamental, like the first thing you teach a guy, which is you never stare down a receiver. And it seems like if he's still making those kind of mistakes in year 5, in your mind, what does it say about his coaching and his development?
Maybe that's just who he is. And when things are not going according to plan or when he has to go off script, maybe he has issues there. But when he's on script, he seems to be proficient. It's like Jared Goff. When things are on point, on rhythm, Goff can be one of the top passers in the league. But when he has to make a play or his first option or maybe even his second option gets taken away quickly, and then everything goes haywire. So I think for Wentz, he's probably more of a rhythmic passer. I don't think the coaching has been terrible. They've been the same. Pieces around him has changed, but I don't think that's enough to where you can say that's the reason why. It's not like they went from a spread to a triple option offense. They've kept the same philosophy, same offense, the same head coach, a lot of the same pieces that he's been working with. So it's just him having to find that consistency. I think a lot of times what happens with athletes, guys start to get a little bit too much attention to the outside. And I'm talking about the media. I'm talking about what fans say. And I know that has to weigh on a guy like Wentz, especially when the guy has to walk past that statue of his backup winning the Super Bowl. So he is dealing with a lot of internal pressure. And if he just goes up there and plays his game, I think he'll be fine. Because, again, his touchdown-interception ratio has been as consistent as we've seen it. And, when things are going good, they can string together some wins. So I think he has to find his comfort level within himself to get back to playing consistent football. Because if he's playing consistent, the Eagles are a much better football team.
One more on the Eagles. I want to know your perspective on Doug Peterson because they brought in guys like Rich Scangarello and Marty Morningweg as these new voices in the offensive room. And now you look at the offense, it's a little predictable at times. There's not a lot of creativity. What do you think is going on with Doug? Because, we keep hearing the same, he sounds like Andy Reid. Like, I got to do a better job. I got to put guys in a better position to be successful. We've heard here in Philadelphia that song and dance from Andy Reid for a very long time. So, how does Doug make the jump from saying he has to do a better job to actually doing that better job?
Well, coaches can only do so much. And Doug is saying what he's supposed to say. But I know privately or within those team meetings that he's probably saying a lot more. It has a few more choice words that he's using. And you don't want to throw anybody under the bus publicly. So when he's saying I got to coach better, I got to do a better job, what he's probably saying in meetings are like, you got to make that block. You can't be out there jogging this route. You can't turn the ball over. You can't miss an opportunity to get the ball when we have an opportunity. You have to make your kick. So he's probably saying all kind of stuff, but to the media, it's the coach speak that we like to call it, saying that, hey, I got to coach better. I got to get these guys ready to play. That's just a great way of not throwing individuals under the bus. Because if he was to come out and say exactly what he tells the guys in the locker room, then that's going to be all kind of stories that people are going to write and talk about. And so that's why coaches tend to say the same things. Because they avoid that. You praise publicly, but you critique him in private.
Emory Hunt joining me here on GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. You can follow him on Twitter, F-Ball Game Plan. Also, check out all of his NFL previews, reviews, college football analysis, and more at his YouTube channel, Football Game Plan. Again, F-Ball Game Plan on Twitter, Football Game Plan on YouTube. Joining us on the Boardwalk kind of hotline on 97.3 ESPN. Emory said a couple other things around the NFL. One of the games stood out to a lot of people yesterday was the Bills and Rams game. So I want to know from you, how has Josh Allen made the steps from a guy who was considered a very raw talent in college to becoming this guy who's dependable now in the NFL?
One, coaching, believing in him. And you see this a lot with quarterbacks that don't look like Josh Allen. When you have a guy that is doing different things that you're not as used to seeing, he has a very unconventional way of going about the quarterback position, but it's productive for him. And you saw the coaching staff embrace that. And when they embraced that, they gave him that confidence to go out there and not hang on every mistake, to go out there and play his game and hopefully finding his flat line. And because of that, we've seen Josh Allen start to develop more change-ups in his throws. He's throwing a lot better with touch. He's throwing a lot better with his placement down the field. His accuracy is there. So those things have gotten better over the last year. What has been consistent for him is athleticism and how flawless he's been inside the red zone. And that goes back to when he was at Wyoming. And because he's so good in the red zone, that's something that you can't coach or can't teach. So you look at a guy that can, let's say, for instance, like a DeShone Kizer, right? When he came out of Notre Dame and played with the Browns that first year, Kizer was good 20-20. He could make some great throws. He could step up in the pocket and throw with accuracy, throw with timing, had a rifle. But once he got inside the red zone, that's when he started to turn the ball over. And that cost him ultimately his job in Cleveland. So when you look at Josh Allen, now it's an adventure from 20-20, but once he gets inside the 20, he has a unique ability to be able to hone in, focus in on what needs to be done, and come away with points. I think he's only had one turnover inside the 20-yard line in his Buffalo Bills career. That's ridiculous. That's exactly what you want from the quarterback position, and he's able to get it done with his leg, with his arm. So you're seeing the guy he already had the inside the 20 game, but now he's starting to grow from the 20-20 range, and that's a good sign of progress, and that is a testament to him and also to the coach staff believing in him and allowing him to work through his mistakes.
According to the early returns on the NFL ratings from yesterday, the most watched game nationally over 16 million people were zoned in on that Cowboys-Seahawks game. What were your takeaways from the Cowboys in that loss? Because to me, I thought it was a big deal that the Cowboys hung with them the way they did.
Yeah, I'm shocked that the best player on the Cowboys defense is a guy that hadn't played in 5 years. Seems the only one to be the only one to get home, and that's Aldon Smith. They have to get better defensively. They couldn't stop Russell Wilson yesterday. They couldn't stop the Atlanta Falcons. They couldn't stop who was the other opponent they played. It was a shootout when they played their other opponent. And the team slips me, but they haven't played well defensively, and that was the Rams in Week 1. So I think when you look at the Cowboys, offensively, they're able to do what they want to do. They can run the ball. They can throw at all levels of the field. Defensively, they have to get much better if they want to be a serious player in the NFC.
Speaking of the NFC, you look around and you see the Rams. They came back. They almost beat the Bills yesterday. Seahawks look completely dominant. Kyler Murray had a rough game yesterday. 49ers are staying above water despite about 200 injuries. How do you rank the teams in the NFC right now, considering all this strange stuff going on? I mean, Drew Brees, he kind of looks like a shot fighter. Aaron Rodgers looks like an MVP candidate. How are you ranking these teams in the NFC right now?
Yeah, it's tough, man, because everyone is dealing with something unique and dealing with something, that can cost them. But right now, I think the best team in the NFC is the Seattle Seahawks. They have the best quarterback in the NFC right now. They're doing great things on offense, and defensively, they're still playing with that Seattle Seahawks mindset. So for me, the clear-cut team is Seattle. I know Green Bay could be right there at 1A maybe. So you look at Green Bay and Seattle as the two top teams, I believe, in the NFC.
Coming up here on 97.3 ESPN 7:30 coverage of Monday Night Football, Ravens versus Chiefs, two MVP award winners, to the arguably two best quarterbacks in the league, hands down. I ask you, the czar of the playbook, you tell me, what are you zeroing in on for tonight's game?
I just want to see how Lamar Jackson plays this game, because he can't fall into the trap of thinking this is a Super Bowl or thinking this is about him versus Pat Mahomes. Or it's really the team versus the team. And if he plays like this is a Week 3 game and not the Super Bowl or AFC Championship game, I think he'll be just fine.
Emory, I want to hit on a couple little college football with you, because I was telling you before you came on today, I'm officially pounding the table for D'Eriq King for Heisman. I know everyone salivates over Trevor Lawrence because he's the presumptive number 1 overall pick next year. But what D'Eriq King has done, transferring to a new school, elevating Miami to where they are, Trevor Lawrence may be the best quarterback in the league, but I would argue that D'Eriq King might be the MVP of college football right now.
Yeah, he's doing the things that you would want to see a guy that come in and do as a redshirt senior. And what I like about him is that he decided to come in and not go to the league and not stay at Houston. He wanted to come in and prove that he can lead a team to a championship, and also he can hone his skills. And I think right now, judging by what the Heisman is, having those wild plays, I think he could be up there. I think he's probably number 1. I don't see a problem with your assessment. You can make the case for Trevor Lawrence, but Trevor Lawrence to me is the Peyton Manning of this Heisman race, and D'Eriq King is the Charles Woodson, where Manning by far probably should have won the award, but Woodson just had those wild plays that stuck in your brain. So it's going to be up to Trevor Lawrence, in my opinion, to really start wowing some people. And again, he did it with those couple of throws in against the Citadel, but I think he's going to have to continue to have those Heisman-like moments. Otherwise, it's going to, the Heisman's all about highlight plays. And if you're able to have those highlight plays, then, you're going to have a great chance. But right now, Lawrence is just so good and steady that you don't see those highlight plays unless he has a run like he did against Ohio State, or a couple of more deep ball throws like he did against the Citadel. D'Eriq King is going to make those plays week in, week out. And Miami has the defense. They have the run game. And, with his passing, it'll be – I don't know if they play each other on the schedule in the ACC, but if they – and I can't remember if they're on the same side, but, man, if they do, that's going to be a game that's going to be must-see TV.
Yeah, and if that happens, that would be almost like a run it back of when we saw Lamar Jackson versus Deshaun Watson a few years ago when Clemson and Louisville played. That would be incredible to watch. So if you're saying that the Eric King is like Woodson and Trevor Lawrence like Peyton Manning, so does that make Kyle Trask the next Ryan Leaf here in terms of the Heisman voting?
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, too. Yeah, I mean, with Trask, to me, is the dark horse. At first, it was going to be Spencer Rattler, but they just lost this game against Kansas State, so that's going to essentially kind of knock him out. You only have so many games to play this year, so I think his Heisman campaign is done, but he's young. He'll be back next year. But Trask and what he did against Ole Miss, and if he can continue to string together games like that, because I think they're the best team in the East, and when they get up and face Alabama or someone like that, then he has a chance to really elevate his game. So, yeah, he's the Ryan Leaf for this Heisman race because he's the dark horse, but he had a great performance, and if he continues to do that, and the good thing about these guys, there's no running backs this year that can steal some of that thunder. So I think it's going to be 3 quarterbacks or maybe 4 quarterbacks with Sam Ehlinger being the 4th one that has a chance to put his name in the Heisman conversation. So I think we'll see 4 quarterbacks this year. But, yeah, you're right. Kyle Trask will be the one that's like the dark horse that's kind of keeping pace with King and Lawrence.
Emory, before I let you go, one more question for you. Again, follow Emory on Twitter at FBall Game Plan for all your NFL and college football and fantasy football analysis. FBall Game Plan on Twitter. Emory, before I let you go, is there a player so far that you think has benefited the most, like has really helped their draft stock by these early college football game season? Because with all the teams coming back, someone's going to get lost in the sauce. But is there somebody that has really taken advantage of these first few weeks?
Yeah, I think the group of 5 prospects, when you look at the Raging Cajuns, for instance, you look at Elijah Mitchell, you look at Trey Regas, both running backs. Both are on the Senior Bowl watch list, but both have outstanding performances so far in these games while they had the spotlight. And Levi Lewis, the diminutive quarterback, has showed people that he's a good field general as well, at least deserving some NFL opportunities. So I think those group of 5 guys have taken the spotlight early on and really brought a lot of attention to themselves, just like the quarterback for Marshall did. And he's not an NFL prospect just yet because he's a redshirt freshman. But, man, after his first game against Eastern Kentucky, everyone was tuned in to see what he can do against Appalachian State. And he went out there and balled out again and let those guys an upset victory. So I think the group of 5 prospects have done a great job in seizing the spotlight and making the most of that opportunity.
He's Emory Hunt. He is the czar of the playbook. Go check out his YouTube channel, Football Game Plan, on Twitter, FBall Game Plan. And as all guests, he appeared on Game Night via the Boardwalk Honda Hotline. Emory, always appreciate the time and the insights. Take care, my friend.
Thank you so much, Josh.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN, theplaceyourhouse.com. Text board is open at 609-403-0973, 609-403-0973 to get on the conversation. Still to come, we'll check out your text messages. We'll look ahead to the Chiefs-Ravens game tonight. Also, maybe a little bit to the NBA Finals game on Wednesday. Don't forget, tomorrow on Game Night, we got a very special guest, Jeff Pearlman. He's come out with another incredible book, 3 Ring Circus. It's about the Shaq, Kobe, and Phil Jackson Lakers. I'm telling you, I'm already a couple chapters in. Let me tell you right now, if there was ever an example of a team, of a franchise, that doesn't get along, but finds a way to win, let me tell you, it's that Lakers team. There's stuff in this book so far that's just going to make you shake your head and say, what the heck is going on? I mean, this is stuff that there was social media back then. TMZ would be all up over it. It'd be ridiculous. And I'm only a couple chapters in. It's only going to get better. Hopefully I can knock a couple more chapters for the show tomorrow. Jeff Pearlman, author of Showtime, author of Football for a Buck, author of Gunslinger. The dude's a great author. I'm so glad he's jumping on the show tomorrow to talk about this book and talk about the Shaq and Kobe Lakers team with Phil Jackson. That's tomorrow at 6:20 on Game Night on 97.3 ESPN. But coming up next, PlaceYourGrouse.com text board 609-403-0973 plus accountability time for yours truly. Not a winning weekend. Find out why next.
Now, more Game Night with Josh Hennig on 97.3 ESPN and the free mobile app.
Josh Hennig here on Game Night. PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board 609-403-0973. PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board is open for you each and every day on the Sports Bash and on Game Night, Monday through Friday here on 97.3 ESPN. Texter chimes in. Come on, Josh. There's hockey on tonight. Sorry, I told you all this last week. It's hard for me to get juiced up for the Lightning versus the Stars. It just doesn't do a lot for me. I'm sorry. It's not. I've tuned in for a few of them. I watched the double overtime, but I mean, I'm not craving for this finals. I'm disappointed that Vegas isn't there. I think if Vegas was there, I'd have a little bit more interest in it. I would. But instead, it's the Stars and the Lightning. And I hope the Lightning win because I feel that the Stars getting there is just a huge letdown. It's a very selfish perspective I have, but it's how I feel about it. I mean, I'm glad the NBA Finals still has the Lakers. No offense to the Nuggets, but can you imagine a Nuggets Heat NBA Finals and what the viewership would be for that? I mean, that would be a little rough around the edges. By the way, speaking of numbers, 14 million plus people watched Sunday Night Football last night. 16 plus million people watched Cowboys Seahawks yesterday. So there you go for the people who say that nobody watches football. By the way, the Cowboys Seahawks game had more people watching it than the people who were watching ABC, CBS, and NBC at the same time combined. That's how many people were watching that game last night. There were more people watching that game on Fox than ABC, NBC, and CBS combined yesterday. That's impressive. I don't care who you are. Don't forget, Sports Bash Cash final word of today coming up in about roughly 6 minutes from now. Counting down for your chance. You get that word, you go to the website or you go to the 97.3 ESPN mobile app, you put the word in, you have a chance to win $10,000. 10 words a day, 10 times a day. You have a chance to win. More words you put in, more chances you are to win. Sports Bash Cash, brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union, now in the Peachtree Plaza in Hamilton. That's coming up 6 minutes from now. We'll give you that word. Every Monday, we have a little accountability time. Aside from the PlaySugarHouse.com text board, 609-403-0973. Accountability time. I love accountability time because it's a beautiful opportunity, whether I'm right or wrong about picks, for us to understand why. I consider it a learning experience. For example, Florida Ole Miss. I gave you all these stats, all this analysis on Friday. Ole Miss didn't cover the 13.5. Now, they had two chances to do it at the end of the game because Lane Kiffin was still gunning to the end because he's Lane Kiffin. But guess what? Didn't get it right. Couldn't cover that 13.5. Now, with all the stats and information I gave you, you know it should have been the pick? It should have been the over. They blew away the over. I mean, they crushed the over by, I think it was 20 points. Give you all these stats on Friday. It's a learning experience for all of us right there. You know, we did hit on the Kansas State at Oklahoma over 16.5. I didn't pick sides in that game. I just said go over. They hit the over all right. How about Kansas State upsetting Oklahoma again? Man, the Big 12 was a dumpster fire. You know, I was right about Mississippi State. I didn't pick them to win outright. I just said they covered the 16.5. Man, LSU looks like incredibly shorthanded. They were 19 kids on Saturday from last year's team. It's the worst loss by a defending national champion since Michigan back in 1998. How about them apples? You know where I was wrong? Kentucky at Auburn. Kentucky, man, they look like that car that keeps stalling on you when you shift it from third to fourth gear. You know who you are if you ever driven a manual car. that old car that has trouble shifting into certain gears. It might stall if you go into third gear, but you can get away with skipping that third gear and go to fourth gear. You might have a chance to keep the car on the road. That's what Kentucky's offense was on Saturday. I mean, Wilson looked good in moments. In other moments, he looked horrible. By the way, Auburn versus Georgia this Saturday, that's going to be an interesting game. Auburn, they don't know what they're doing on defense. Georgia doesn't know what they're doing on offense. That'll be interesting. SEC matchup this Saturday. Where I was also wrong for our final game we picked, how about Army at Cincinnati? Army looked good early on, but the early returns were not the truth. You got to wait for all the ballots to come in. And guess what? The ballots that came in, you know what they showed? They showed that Cincinnati is a better team than I gave them credit for. 2-4 college football picks. We'll do better next week. After a 2-4 week, we're currently sitting at 16-11 on the year. Could be better, could be worse. PlaySugarHouse.com text board is open 609-403-0973. Dan from EHT chimes in and says, can't forget the Philly special was not Doug's idea. It was Nick Foles that said it to him. Well, if you really want to go dig deep, Dan, it wasn't even the Eagles' play. They actually took it from another team. And that team took it from a high school play, apparently. They did this whole documentary on it a couple of years ago about how, the Eagles got it from the Bears, and the Bears got it from a high school team. So I'm not going to sit here and act like that's a negative against Doug. I mean, if you see somebody else do something good and someone's got a good idea, a smart coach listens to the people around him. I'm not going to be mad about that. Dan from EHC also chimed in a little bit earlier and said, it's so difficult to see Prescott throwing lasers all over the field while we worry about Wentz snap to snap. I will give you that. That is exasperating. But, it is what it is. I'm not going to be too mad about that, honestly. When you think about the NFL, you're not going to hit on every pick. Not every draft pick's going to work out. But it is very frustrating to watch a quarterback like Wentz, who you've seen play well, play this erratic and this inconsistent. And you heard Emory Hunt say it earlier. The only thing Wentz is consistent at right now is being inconsistent. By the way, thanks again to Emory Hunt for joining us on the show. Again, tomorrow coming up, Jeff Pearlman, author of the new book, 3 Ring Circus, on GameNight here on 97.3 ESPN. One more text on the PlaySugarHouse.com. Text board 609-403-0973. Text says, do you think Josh Allen is better right now than Drew Brees? I can't go that far. And here's why. I think Josh Allen in some ways is a product of his environment. I think Josh Allen in some ways, as Emory Hunt said, he has a coach who believes in him. So, you know what? I think that there's something to be said for the fact that when you look at Josh Allen, you realize that he's on a team that puts him in a position to be successful. All right, time for that final Sports Bash Cash keyword. It's soap. SOAP, soap. Take that word, go to the website or to 973ESPN.com or the 973 ESPN mobile app right now. The word is soap, SOAP. You have a chance to win $10,000. Another word coming up tomorrow at 9:55 a.m. Sports Bash Cash keyword brought to you by Jersey Shore Federal Credit Union, now in the Peachtree Plaza in Hamilton. Josh Hennig, GameNight on 97.3 ESPN. It's raining down there in Baltimore for the Chiefs game. I'm a little worried about that over-under.